Hello. In this video, we'll be discussing text structure and purpose. Now, first of all, we need to discuss some tips for this kind of question. So, firstly, we need to look at key elements of structure. More specifically, we'll be focusing on stuff like how the text is organized, cause effect, compare and contrast, any sequence events, or problems and solutions. If you're able to understand this, then you're able to understand the main flow of the passage quickly, and that saves you time when you're looking for the correct answer to these kinds of questions. The second one, topic sentences and transitions. Now, this one's pretty important here because topic sentences, usually at the beginning of a paragraph, they give clues to the paragraph's main idea. And transitional words like however, in addition, or for example, they signal shifts in purpose or emphasis. If you're able to recognize these, they can guide you to understand how these ideas are connected. Number three, the purpose of the author. Now, for this one, you kind of need to think a little bit deeper. You need to think about why the author writes the passage. Are they trying to inform you, persuade you? Is it entertaining? Or is it a description of something? If you're able to answer this question, you can get a better idea of what the tone is, the style, and the structure of the text, as well as any supporting details. And then, speaking of details, you need to focus on how these details support the main idea. So, whenever you're able to ask yourself this question, you're able to understand how specific details support larger claims. So, any examples, quotes, anything like that can clarify or reinforce the main points. It helps you identify the author's purpose and the reasoning more effectively. And number five, this one's going to be good for you, like summarizing the paragraph. Now, what I mean by good for you is as you read, try summarizing each paragraph into one sentence. Because this way, you're able to focus on the main idea. It helps you track the progression of ideas and it helps you understand structure questions and the relationship between paragraphs and sections. So, if you're able to do these things, you're able to improve your speed and confidence with these kinds of questions. Now, let's look at this first problem over here. The following text is from Srimati Swarna Kumari Devi's 1894 novel, The Fatal Garland, translated by A. Christina Albers in 1910. Shakti is walking near a riverbank that she visited frequently during her childhood. So let's read the passage here. She crossed the woods she knew so well. The trees seemed to extend their branches like welcoming arms. They greeted her as an old friend. Soon she reached the riverside. Now, for this one, which choice best describes the function of the underlying portion of the text as a whole? So for this one, if I'm looking at the text, it says extending the branches like welcoming arms. So the term welcoming here, to be that underlying section is going to be corresponding with C because it talks about her sense of belonging in the landscape. The trees are a part of the landscape and it can be seen, her sense of belonging can be seen when they're extending their branches like welcoming arms. So this is how her belonging is emphasized in the context of this question. Now, try this question on your own. Pause here and wait for the answer. Okay, if you selected A as your answer, you are correct. This is the best answer here because it describes how the underlying portion of the sentence functions in the text as a whole. It starts with ordinary soap bubbles, right? They only exist for like a minute or so before they pop because of evaporation or gravity induced drainage. And then after that, it talks about the workers researchers. And this talks about increasing how long the bubbles last by altering the chemical composition. The underlined section, which talks about both water and glycerol, is able to draw additional water molecules from the surrounding air and compensate for evaporation. So that's how they're increasing the lifespan of the bubbles, essentially. So, because of this, the underlying portion talks about longevity here. So, based on that, A is the best answer. Now, practice problem number three. Again, pause, try to figure this one out on your own, and then when you're ready to hear an explanation of the answer, unpause it. If you got the answer D, you are correct. And this is because it's best describing the main purpose of the text. So it's to explain the study's conclusion and how researchers involved in the study got there. So it starts by summarizing the main conclusion of the study, conducted by Paul Hanel and his colleagues. When confronted with ideas they disagree with in discussions about controversial topics, they must more likely to respond politely if they think about their personal values before engaging in the discussions. So they talk about the design in the text carefully, and they compare the interaction between members of an experimental group who had been prompted to write about the personal values beforehand, and then the control group, which were just asked to write about a beverage, which didn't have anything to do with the values. So, based on this, it said that the experimental group people behaved more politely than those in the control group because they had the values. And this was when they were discussing controversial topics. So, this is the finding that led to the conclusion at the beginning of the text, which is why D is the best answer. They give you the conclusion and how you arrive at the study, and how you arrive at the conclusion through the study. Now, looking at this question here, I want you to pause, try this one out on your own, and then in the end, we'll go through the answer. The correct answer in this case is A. This is because the text purpose is best described here. It's as accurate as possible. Because the thing is, they're describing the important role Barry Williams played in supporting many other black women as they relocated to the northern United States during the early years of the Great Migration. After introducing Barry Williams, the text is describing how she found jobs for other black women, who in many cases relocated in search of better employment prospects than the South could offer at the time. The text is essentially saying that by doing this action, she Barry Williams was able to ease this woman transition as the circumstances changed. So because of that, A is the best answer because she played a key role in supporting other black women as the circumstances changed. Now this one's 5 and 6 are going to be challenge questions. Try and solve this one on your own using what we discussed so far. The correct answer to this one is D. Now, this is because the text is providing an overview of scholarly work here. It's describing the fashion practices of black female farm workers in the late 19th and early 20th century Texas. And these practices were influenced by both the fashion ideals at the time and the demands of farm work. So based on that, it's describing the findings of the study that explored the factors influencing the fashion practice in both 19th century and 20th century Texas. And lastly, practice problem number 6. Again, try pausing this one and figuring this out on your own. And then once you're sure, confident, log that answer in and we'll discuss it. The correct answer is C. Now, why we ended up with C is interesting because it best describes how the second one, it functions in a text as a whole. So the first sentence here, astronomers are confident that the star Betelgeuse will eventually consume all the helium in its core and explode in a supernova. This first sentence is what establishes something astronomers believe with some certainty, that it'll explode. After this, the underlined sentence introduces a problem because The astronomers aren't sure whether it'll explode because they don't have information about the star's internal characteristics. And after that, the third sentence indicates the researcher Serafina El Nance and colleagues, they investigated a possible method of obtaining the necessary information about the internal characteristics of Betelgeuse, but they found out the method wouldn't be sufficient. So because of that, we can see that this sentence highlighted is to identify the problem that they tried to solve but failed. So because of that, we arrived at C. I hope these practice problems helped you with your questions regarding text structure and purpose. I'll see you in the next video.